Okay, everyone, I think since it's almost 4:07 and we have 58 participants, I'm going to officially start our AR meeting for May 13th, 2020. Again, thank you very much for joining us. We know you've been working hard today, educating our students virtually, and we appreciate you taking the time. We're not going to display the agenda because it was sent to you in the email, but we're going to have our scholarship recipients here at 4:15 p.m. And I believe Patty is going to do that with Nancy Piercy. And then we are very honored this evening to have Dr. Anderson, our superintendent, Mike Gratis, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and Bill Sutter, the district CFO, joining us because we know you have had a lot of questions and concerns. So the way we're going to run things this evening is when we are done with the scholarship recipients and it's time for our district folks to talk to us, they're each going to make a short opening statement, and then if you have questions you would like to ask, I'm going to have you type them in the chat, and I will be monitoring the chat. So it would be helpful if during that time we all are muted and we all stop our video, and we'll just have the Bill and Rob and Mike showing their video or their camera, and then I'll be asking the questions, and then you guys can decide, Bill, Rob, or Mike, who should best answer it. So we'll do that with the chat, and then right at 5:30, well, or approximately 5:30, we should have some state legislators joining us, and then we'll switch our AR meeting to a virtual town hall. And during that, it'll be the same format where I'll be monitoring the chat. And if you would like to share a story with a state legislator and tell them about your situation and how much K-12 funding is important to you, we would value that, or if you have a specific question. And I don't know exactly who's going to show up at what time because some of them have some caucus meetings that have cropped up due to the joint budget committee work that's going on, but we'll just do our best to get through it. All right, so first thing on our agenda is to approve the agenda, previous minutes and financial report. And as I explained a few minutes ago, the financial report is not going to be displayed on screen tonight, but it's in the classroom that Patty has prepared in Google Classroom, so you're welcome to take a look at it there, but it has been approved by the Financial Review Committee. So I will entertain a motion to approve those things, and you can just go ahead and unmute yourself if you would like to do that for this part of the meeting.
I make a motion to approve them.
Thank you, Erin. So Erin.
I second that.
Okay, Erin has moved to approve the agenda, previous minutes and financial report, seconded by Jenny Karani. Is there any further discussion, or any discussion, I should say?
I have one question. I'll try to make
Sure,
it brief.
Erin.
I recognize that at the bottom of the minutes when I was reading them, there was a couple of questions outstanding, and I'm sure that those will be addressed. Terry, you were going to look into those, right, as I understand it.
Yes. And I'll look back at those just to make sure that those have been addressed or will be addressed. Thank you for that, Erin. Further discussion? Nancy? Oh. All right. And so you can just, actually, if you'd want to go ahead and show your faces for this, or you can raise your hand virtually using that. We have that at the with the participant list. So all those seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the agenda, previous minutes, and financial report, please signify by either raising your hand virtually or in person. All right. Opposed? Nay? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. We have approved. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next part of our agenda, and I'll turn that over to Patty and Nancy, which is honoring our 2020 scholarship recipients for BVEA.
I'm actually going to defer to Patty because when I'm on Zoom with my Chromebook, it doesn't work very well. So Patty, I'm going to let you discuss this and talk about these wonderful ladies and gentlemen that we awarded money to.
Patty?
Are you there, Patty?
Yes, I am. Hi. Sorry, I was sharing my screen. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today in our last AR meeting of the year. Even though it's virtually, it's really nice to see everybody. And we're going to start with some wonderful news. I hope everybody can see on our display. I'm trying to make sure you see everyone there. I have awarded this year 8 scholarships to some amazing, amazing, amazing students. The scholarship committee met with them a couple of weeks ago, and there was laughter, there were tears, and you know, after we interviewed everybody, we just all had a wonderful conversation. And these amazing BVSD students, one day are going to be our colleagues, and we couldn't be prouder of that fact. So they are going to be joining us in a minute. 2 of them couldn't be with us today, but we do have a few messages from them. So I'll be displaying those as well. And so our 2020 scholarship recipients are Annalise Ball, Julia Gamban, Jenna George, Ellie Bonella, Rachel Krantz, Avery Minor, Catherine Novak, and Connor Sarasen. So we really want to congratulate every single one of you. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, and hopefully we have some of them here now. If they want to go ahead and introduce themselves, I'll start calling out and see if you're here, because I can't see everyone on my screen. And please unmute yourself and feel free to talk to us about what you're planning to do. So I'm going to start with Annalise Ball. See if Annalise is here. Annalise. Oh, there she is. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. So everybody, this is Annalise. Would you like to say a few words, Annalise?
Yeah, just wanted to say that I'm very glad that I received this. And it's such an honor to have especially received this type of scholarship for educators. I'm really glad that I got it because I'm very fortunate to be able to become a teacher. So this is definitely a great scholarship.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today, and congratulations. I know every single educator that's here in this meeting today. Dr. Anderson's here as superintendent. Mike Grados, our assistant superintendent from Human Resources, is here, and Bill Sutter, who is our chief financial officer. So, gentlemen, look at our future teacher here. So make sure you keep her name in mind. Thank you so much, Annalise.
Yeah.
Is Julia here?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Julia. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for to the whole committee for awarding me one of these scholarships. It is an amazing opportunity for me to continue my education and teach in the future, and it's also an honor to receive this from not only from teachers to future teachers, but also from teachers that I've had and teachers that I've known over the last few years in the Lafayette community. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Julian. Thank you for being here, and congratulations again.
Julie, I
Thank you.
have to ask you, this is Terry Mulford. Is your brother Eric?
Yes.
I taught him in 3rd grade at Lafayette Elementary.
For math as well.
How old is he now?
He is 21.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. I know I have a slide from Jen I'm going to show to you in a minute. And is Ellie here? I think Ellie sent us a message as well. So I'll be displaying that in a minute. How about Rachel?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Hi, Rachel. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you. This year I've been given that opportunity with the Teacher Cadet Program to just expand on my love for education and going into that future as an educator. And this scholarship's definitely going to help me kind of create that path for me. And like Julia said, from teachers to a future teacher, that's really means a lot to me. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to see where this takes me.
You're so welcome and congratulations. And I wanted to add to everybody before I continue with our guest is that we will have a really nice spread in the Daily Camera congratulating all these wonderful seniors. So we will have a big advertisement. So please look out for that, okay? Avery, I think I saw Avery around somewhere.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Avery.
Hello.
Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your time and consideration. I know it takes a lot of time to have to go through everyone and listen to what everyone has to say, but I'm very thankful that you guys gave me the time to say what I needed to say. And I'm very excited to be a teacher and inspire students the way that I've been inspired. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to get this scholarship, and it has really pushed me and made me excited to carry out my dream.
I'm so glad. Congratulations. Avery was one of my students in Spanish, so it's like I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And Avery, this is Terry Mulford again. Weren't you in my 3rd grade class at Lafayette Elementary?
Yes.
5th grade too.
Yeah.
Cool. And Angela too. Yay.
How about
One.
Catherine? Is Catherine here?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Catherine. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I would. I really want to say thank you guys for always, you know, just even when we were little, just influencing us and wanting me to become a teacher. And so the fact that the dedication that you guys do and put into that is what makes me want to become a teacher. And so thank you so much for the scholarship opportunity and giving me the chance to continue into what I've already stepped foot into when I've been at the Boulder Tech Center.
Thank you so much for those words. Of course, I'm getting all teary-eyed here, but thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you for everything. And Connor. Connor, are you here?
I am. How's it going?
Hi, Connor. Hi, Mom. Thank you for having your mom. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of the inspiring words you all gave me during my interview itself, and how excited I am to further my academic career going into teaching these next 4 years. And I'm very thankful that I have the scholarship to help me with that.
You're so welcome. Congratulations. And I know every single teacher that's listening and watching you right now in this virtual world, there's 73 of us all together. We're just so proud. And you know, we all know that you're going to be amazing teachers. You're amazing students. You showed us that during our interviews, and we just wish you the best of luck, the best of luck with everything. And remember, you can continue for 4 years reapplying.
I definitely will.
And I just want to say thank you also. Terry and I worked together my very first year as a brand new teacher, not knowing anything, just deer in headlights. And so just to be sitting here is just
Ingrid, yes.
So thank you as a BVEA member, as a teacher that taught in this district for, you know, over 20 years. I'm just elated. So thank you all for your work.
I recognize you now, Ingrid.
Thank you so much also for everything you've done. And I think also, let's see, Catherine's mom is one of our ARs. Is Ashley around there somewhere? Would you like to say something?
Hi. I'm actually teary-eyed because I'm just so proud and very thankful for all of you teachers who are amazing. You're wonderful colleagues. And I'm so thankful that my daughter's been inspired by all of you to become part of this profession that we give so much to. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, thank you all to, I'm going to show two one video and one message we received from the two scholarship recipients that couldn't be here today. So if you bear with me just 1 second, I'm going to share my screen again. Hopefully this will work. Let's see. Here we go.
Hi, this is Ellie Winella, and I just wanted to say thank you very, very much for awarding me the scholarship. I'm sorry I couldn't come tonight, so I just wanted to send a video to say thank you. With this scholarship, I am going to attend Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota, with a major in elementary education and a minor in Spanish. This scholarship means a lot to me, and it means even more that it's coming from a group of educators. And I just wanted to say thank you very much.
And here we have Jenna George. She says, BVA, thank you so much for awarding me this scholarship. This award will help me pursue my degree with significantly less debt, allowing me to give all I have to the students I will teach. I will be attending Colorado Mesa University in the fall, where I will pursue a degree in English secondary education. I plan on teaching middle school language arts after graduation. So thank you again, everyone, so much. Of course, now I'm all teary-eyed myself because it's just, you know, all our hard work, everything we do from the moment our students come into our classrooms, and we see some wonderful students just wanted to pursue our same career. So thank you again. Congratulations to everyone. Terry, I'm turning it back to you.
Thanks, Patty. And thank you, Nancy, for helping with that tonight. Normally, we'd be giving out cupcakes and having a celebration, so I really wish we could do that, but I'm so pleased all of you could be here tonight, and we so look forward to having you join the ranks of being an educator. I know it's a challenging profession, but we need young people like you to have that passion and drive, because it's more important now than ever to be educating our students with people that have it in their heart. And if you don't have a heart for teaching, you shouldn't be doing it. And we know you guys do. So thank you very much. It's a kind of amazing to me that you're so young, and you might not think you are, but you are. And to know already what profession you want to enter when you get through college. So thank you again. Really appreciate it. All
Terry,
right. So
Terry, I'd like to just remind them to check the daily camera on Sunday and look for the ad that we're putting in there to recognize and honor them. So make sure that you check out the daily camera on Sunday.
Yeah, I understand that'll be a half-page ad, maybe in the local section, so you guys will be famous and in living color. So how exciting. Well, thank you again. So I'm going to move on to the next part of our meeting. And for this part, again, if you are a BVEA member, AR, and you're here and you would like to ask a question of either Rob Anderson, Mike Gratis, or Bill Sutter, please type it in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat. And we're going to have each of these gentlemen make an opening statement to us. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like people to mute themselves and perhaps also the video, so we can just focus on our speakers. And then I'll be reading, I'll stay I'll stay muted with my picture, but I'll be asking the questions as they come up. And if it doesn't look like a question Bill or Rob or Mike could answer, we'll skip over that one, but know that we'll be, Loretta's able to send us a script of all the chats so we can monitor those and make sure that we address your questions or concerns later if we don't this evening. All right, so I'm going to ask everyone to please mute themselves as well as their video, and we'll have Rob and Bill and Mike speak to us, and I'll be monitoring the chat.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. That is certainly a tough act to follow. Congratulations to all of our students. If any of you are still on, I think Terry said it best. We just need our best and brightest to enter our profession, and it's so great to see so many just bright, amazing kids looking to join the ranks of educators. And so that's really wonderful. Thanks for letting us sit in on that. 6 days, I think, of school left, and if you are like me and have kids in your house like I do, they're ready. We're all ready. It's been a long few months, and just want to again thank everybody for all of your hard work. We're going to be talking, I'm sure, answering lots of your questions today, so I won't say too much other than that I just appreciate being here and the opportunity to interact and just have honest, open, transparent conversations with you as we're dealing not only with this pandemic, but also now what is going to be pretty significant budget challenges. And so I will go ahead and let Bill and then Mike introduce themselves, and then happy to start answering questions.
So I'm Bill Sutter. I'm the CFO for the district. I'm at about 23 and a half years into BVSD, so I've been here a long time, been part of the system for a long time. So suffice it to say that this year, this transitional year, this time of the year where we are right now is unmistakably unlike anything else that we've ever had to deal with, both instructionally, system-wise, and financially. So this is definitely a significant challenge as we go from this year to next year and into the following year even. So be ready to answer whatever questions we can.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Grados, Assistant Soup for Human Resources. Know many of you. I've talked to many of you. It's good to see you again. This is my 40th year in education, and I've never experienced anything like this with this pandemic. So it's new to me, and it's uncharted territory, and it's been a real challenge. And I do appreciate some of the compliments that we've gotten around the guidelines. I received some emails from several of you about the HR guidelines and how clear that is. We still have some work to do on that, but you know, things change. And as they change, we put something out, something might change. So really appreciate your patience and understanding with that. Given that, I guess we'll take questions, correct?
Yes, and I'm just going to try to go in order. There's still a few of you that have not muted your camera. If you wouldn't mind doing that, unless you're a speaker. I see Lisa and Stephanie, and yeah, it just I think makes it easier to focus on our speakers. Thank you. So just go down to the left-hand corner, and there's a little, it looks like kind of like a fish. You just click it, and it'll mute your camera or turn off your camera. All right, our first question, and again, I'll just read them in order, and we'll get through as many as we can, and then I'll let you guys decide who wants to answer it. It says, hello, gentlemen. Now that the TLCC data is public, how will it be used by the district?
I'll take that first one, and then maybe Dr. Anderson, you might fill in. But one of the things we look for are trends in terms of the working conditions for our staff. So we look at those as a whole, and then at each school, then it's up to each of the area soups and the exec directors to look at those and to then address anything that they feel necessary to address with each principal. That survey is probably it's a very effective survey. It tells us a lot. And so for me personally, as an HR person, I like to see the trends in terms of what the working conditions are throughout the district. And I've seen those, and so I've not seen all of them, but I've studied some of those, and so I'm actually looking at themes and trends that I can share with the area soups in terms of what I see.
Thanks, Mike. I would say that it's really, really important that we're paying attention to the conditions at our individual schools and overall as a district. So as superintendent, I looked through each and every school, certainly saw trends and outliers. I shared that information with area superintendents to do deeper digging when that's necessary. If there's significantly lower or even significantly higher scores in those categories, I think those are things that we can learn from. So number one, we do pay attention to those. And, I think as I looked at the system, the information that I read in the TLCC surveys was really validating from the information that I actually collected personally when I went out and was visiting schools. Now, my goal was to visit every school. We got pretty close. The COVID-19 kind of shut us down. But, the things that we're paying attention to, and I think the whole state needs to pay attention to, is time, right? And this is even before the pandemic. How do we make sure that we're providing teachers with enough time to do what we're asking them to do? And that's even more so now than ever before. So it's certainly something that we're thinking about. And so I would say that we use it at the micro level. We look at individual schools, but we also look at the system to see how can we take that information and help us drive improvements across BVSD.
Thank you. All right, our next question says, I'm wondering about how teachers are expected to balance in-person learning and online learning for those who choose to keep their kids at home, but not enroll them in BVSD Universal.
So my hope is as we get closer to the beginning of the year, we'll have more clear guidelines and guidance around what's actually going to be happening, what we're expecting, how we're better positioned to support teachers. And then we can begin to work with folks like Aaron, who have now individual challenges and needs. And we would work through principals, certainly through Mike, through HR. It's just going to be tough. I wish I had blanket answers. I'm afraid that there's going to be a lot of questions that you all ask where we just don't have the information yet. And so, just depending upon individual situations, we're going to have to take those case by case, certainly. And we still have to kind of stand up what BVSD Universal is going to look like, or are there potentially these virtual options where kids could still be in a class, but instead of going to the in-person, they just were to do that virtually. I think there's a lot for us to work through. So everybody knows we have developed a reintroduction task force, and we're working with BVEA, and believe there'll be teachers, principals, and lots of folks on those committees as we start to think and contemplate the challenges that this will cause, and then the potential solutions. And I don't know that all the solutions will be great. We're going to do the best we can in what's really an unprecedented time. But appreciate the question.
Rob, I would just add, it's kind of like a new normal that we'll be facing that'll be challenging for all of us. So,
okay, I think the next question is related to the previous one about consideration given for childcare burden for both families of students and staff in the event we're doing a blended model. And then I think, Mike, the next one, it's a two-part question, although not really related. There has been, so someone was wondering about notification from HR about the annual leave payout. And I think we talked about that Tuesday at our HR meeting, but maybe Mike, you could take that one regarding the annual leave payout that people can get if they don't want to save their days.
yes, absolutely. Yes, that memo normally comes out toward the last week of school, but it will be out actually this week. I think, Terry, we talked on Tuesday that Vivian was preparing that, so that will go out to those who want that option. So look for that. If you do not receive that, please get in touch with me or with Vivian or the HR email address, and then we can figure that out and get you going on that.
Okay, so I think the question about consideration for childcare burden, that was answered by you, Dr. Anderson, previously, unless you had anything else to add to that now.
Well, I think it's a big consideration, right? If we're talking about blended learning and folks have to go to work, how do parents manage that? There is going to be just this push and pull in our community and communities across the country of folks who really want, and I would guess on this call, if you're to poll people, sit in one of these camps. We need to move forward. We've got to get going, and we can't do it until everything is perfectly safe. And I think what will inevitably happen is there's going to have to be some merging to the middle with exceptions for outliers, right? And so as we think as our plan, comes together, how do you get things moving? Again, if it doesn't do parents any good, they can't go back to work if you're not, if the idea is you're going to open school to get people back to work, if you're doing it in a way that doesn't work for parents. So super complicated. We've got a task force that is going to be working together to try to best answer these questions. The challenge is going to be people want answers now. I only know that because in my inbox right now, there's 50 people who want answers from me now, right? And I know that there's even questions in this chat on, wondering why there wasn't more specificity in what it is that we released. And the truth of the matter is that we just don't know yet. And that we're not working in isolation. This isn't just we decide. We have to work with local government. We have to work with Boulder County Public Health. They are the experts. And as they're all trying to figure it out, we're trying to figure it out as well. But I think that that's a very legitimate question. One of the things that over the course of the next several months, we hope becomes more clear and we can answer better.
Thank you very much. All right, next question. The teachers in my building are worried that Boulder Universal next year will take FTE from buildings. What is the plan if we get a lot that decide this option?
So it's interesting. We put that survey out to start to hopefully get a sense of how many of our parents are going to be opting not to come back to in-person school. And our thinking behind this is if they don't go to Boulder Universal, they'll go to a private charter online school, or there's other options, right? So we want to make sure that we keep those students within BVSD, because if we lose hundreds of students, it compounds the budget issues that we'll be facing more significantly. I think that we will have to work with high school principals, middle school principals, to understand how we would transfer funds, FTE or not, if kids opt for Boulder Universal. I think that there's going to be things that we'll consider. One of those, could be if a kid goes, the money goes to Boulder Universal. I mean, that's an option. I don't know that that's the best option. But it could be that we have teachers that are working in buildings or working across the district who would much rather, maybe they would want to teach a period or two online, and then potentially we could just shift those resources over. I mean, this is speculative. I mean, I think those are some of the options that you would have to consider. I will say this, I don't think that it's going to be feasible, given our budget situation, that you pay for seats twice, that you hold everybody harmless and then put more money into a program when we're looking, and the state's looking at a $3.3 billion budget hole. I don't know that I could make that promise or that's realistic. And so we'll have to come up with a different option and try to do that in a way that's collaborative and fair to schools and kids.
Thanks, Rob. All right, our next question is asking, is BVSD considering a bond measure in November? Would you need to file an appeal?
So, I mean, the short answer is no. There's been no discussion at the board level of going to the voters. Just to clarify the terminology, a bond question is around capital projects. So wouldn't have anything to do with operating dollar shortfalls. We still haven't finished our current bond program, so there's we're not really in a place to go forward with another capital construction project question. If the question is really more about those operating mill levy overrides, we know there hasn't been much conversation about that either. That certainly is a very long conversation, usually with the board, with a lot of different input to go along with that, community surveys, things like that. We don't have very many options left to us under current law to ask the voters for additional funds. We are at the current maximum of 25% override for the general mill levy override. We have a transportation one that we could get a little bit more money, but that's only about $6.5 million that's available there to backfill what's currently coming out of the general fund. Full day kindergarten went away as an option when that was funded at the state level. And there's a little more opportunity in the operations and technology override. And again, that would be a board discussion over a long time to take that action. The board has until, what is it, 90 days, I think, before election, November election, to make that decision. Usually it's in August or early September where the board would decide on that. So there's still some time, but it hasn't been a discussion point with the board.
And I'll say this. I'll say this as well. Never say never. Never say. So you all understand, as we're talking about the budget, here's the process that we'll be following. We're going to be scheduling a work session with our board on Tuesday, next Tuesday. We're still working out the time and details. During that meeting, we are going to give them the best available information that we currently have. Right, this information is changing. We heard forecasts yesterday. We want to just be transparent and honest with everybody on what we're dealing with. Right, we'll ask our board and we'll work with our board to try to give us some guiding principles as we think about potential budget reductions and things that we need to do so they can help guide and direct, because ultimately they approve the budget one way or the other. And then there's going to be time between that meeting and then also when the legislature comes back together, right? So you just don't know. At this point, to Bill's point, we haven't talked about that. I think it's really tough when folks are hurting to go back out to voters and ask for more money. But that's not to say that's not something that the board will show interest in. We'll know more Tuesday, and we'll continue just to stay engaged with that. But as Bill said, we just don't have much room, even if we did do that.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to combine a couple of questions that they're related to teachers moving through the phases with confidence, being able to cope through the changes, and are teachers expected to do both online lessons and in-person lesson in those phases 3 and 4 of the plan? Is it going to, somebody's feeling that it could be overwhelming and double the work?
They're not feeling it would be double the work. I mean, that's what it would be. I think that these are the things that we're really worried about. I would tell you that our team, as we think about reintroduction, is going to do everything that we can to provide lessons, resources, supports to teachers to try to ease this transition. And it's very possible, as we think about our schedule, right, that you have to reduce the amount of time that teachers are actually on teaching, so they can have more time to plan and develop and prepare. And I think that that's a balance that we're going to have to try to strike, knowing that there's going to be potential social distancing guidelines in phase 3. So something we are very in tune to. I don't think you would see a plan that would come out and just expect everybody to do anything with not enough time to plan or no additional resources. That wouldn't be fair.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to combine some budget type questions together. Somebody was wondering about horizontal movement for next year. Somebody's wondering, are job postings and hiring still taking place? And then teachers are worried that if we take a pay cut instead of furlough days, we'll never get back to where we were with the salary schedule. So there might be some more related to the budget, but perhaps you want to comment on those things now?
So I'll start, and then if Mike and Bill, if you have information to add. The information that we have now is that the state's budget is projected to take a $3.3 billion hit, right? We've done some simple math. Education's 36% of the state budget. You know, how could that, if it sits at 3.3 billion, you know, what we'd be looking at is close to a $40 million hit locally in BVSD, right? If we have to cut $40 million, it is going to impact our employees in some way, shape, or form. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I wish that weren't true, but it's going to affect each and every one of us. How that happens, we don't know. So what we've done is Mike has scheduled meetings with the negotiating teams for all of our bargaining units. We're scheduling a meeting with the board to get their guidance as we think about what we would need to do. And then Bill is behind the scenes crunching numbers daily on what are the things we can do or couldn't do to begin to create the reductions that would fill what could be up to a $40 million hole. I've been in talks with superintendents across the metro, and there isn't a superintendent or a school district out there that isn't realizing that this is going to impact our employees. Now, I don't know what the specifics are, and I think that those are the things that we need to be talking with our associations on in regards to what could those look like, what are the options. And so before we have those conversations, I can't speculate as to what that might look like. But there are limited options, right? You could look at furlough days. You could look at salary reductions. We could look at layoffs and laying off people from the district. And I think that those are the three really unappealing options that we potentially will have. We don't know where we're going to be yet. You know, we still have our fingers crossed that it's not going to be as deep as a $40 million cut. I will tell you, we'll exhaust our one-time dollars and we'll look to reserves to the extent that we can to help offset that for a year. The challenge is going to be the next year when we may even have a bigger hole, right? So we can put some of this off. You can't put all of it off because the following year you'd be looking at monumental cuts, right? So all this is pretty new information, but information we've been somewhat anticipating. And so in regards to specifics on what it would look like, I think our commitment is let's sit down with our associations. Let's talk about what the options are. Let's be transparent, honest, and open, and do the best we can to make it through this. Mike or Bill, do you have anything to add?
No, other than that, as Dr. Anderson stated earlier, this whole pandemic in the state budget is hitting everybody pretty hard, and it's just not BVSD. And so the state is suffering from this. I know I have neighbors here that have been furloughed or they've taken 25% cuts. They're in the private sector. So, you know, it's something that just not BVSD is being isolated on. It's everybody. And so as I speak to other districts throughout Colorado, these are going to be some very challenging, tough times and hard decisions we're going to have to make. What is up for grabs? Don't know. Anything could be up for grabs. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question is talking about teachers being concerned about the safety and equity, with some of them being required to do in-person instruction, and just concerns with social distancing, and perhaps teachers who are immune compromised or have are older or in that at-risk group. So what considerations are being given for that group of educators?
You know, I think that all of those are factors that our reintroduction task force is going to have to consider, right? If we have employees, right, valued employees that for whatever reason can't come to in-person and participate, how do we find a role within this new system of learning for them to be able to contribute. Again, probably mostly on a case-by-case basis, but we'll have to have some responses. We want to keep our people safe, and we want to keep everyone safe. And to the extent that we can't do that, we have to think of different options. So don't have specifics. Just know that we're considering that, and we'll be sensitive to that as we work through.
Absolutely. And we'll be following guidelines too that are being sent to us. So.
Thank you. So a comment and question. Online learning is the new inequity. How can we learn from this experience to redirect the focus to better equip all of our families and students to be technologically and teachers equipped with the training and support to be more effective and maximize schooling and learning? This is especially critical with the need to provide better STEM or STEAM education for all students, not just a few students that get into a pre-engineering AP or IB program.
So Carlota, that's a great question. It's keeping me up at night. It's keeping many of us up at night, understanding and knowing that every day that we aren't providing the in-person services in our schools, that some kids are falling further and further behind. And that's true, right? And I know that our teachers and everyone is doing as much as we can to try to combat that. But to tell you that that's not true, it wouldn't be the truth. I think that is true. My hope is that as soon as we're able to come back to in-person learning, that we'll be able to double down on our efforts to try to, number one, assess the standards that we know kids needed to learn but didn't learn, and find ways to extend learning for those kids that have fallen behind because of this. And it's going to be magnified for our most vulnerable families and populations. I wish it wasn't the case, but it will be. In the budget that we had developed preliminarily, we have set aside one-time dollars to try to extend some of that learning. Whether we'll be able to continue to hold on to that depends on how deep these cuts get. But I do think that we're going to have to think about MTSS in a significantly different way. And we're going to have to structure our days and our times and our resources and our people in ways where over the course of 6 months to a year, we provide kids the extra opportunities they need to catch up. So know we're thinking about that. Trust me, this is an incredibly important issue to me personally. And I know it's important to our community as well. So something we'll certainly be considering and making adjustments and plans for. So as kids move through our system, we catch them up and get them to where they need to be and provide them those opportunities.
Thanks, Rob. It's kind of a longer question. I'm going to try to condense it. It's concerns about getting kindergartners to socially distance, and I know that's probably something the task force will be working on in regard to when we come back to in-person learning with a blended model, how we deal with numbers of students. But I think what I'd really like to talk about from this question is with the employees, we have our annual leave days, and I'm so grateful that we extended the opportunity for the sick leave bank to employees this spring who hadn't been a member before. But I think people are concerned because if they or a family member are sick and they're expected to be at school, are they going to be having to use the Family Medical Leave Act? Are they going to be losing pay? Just how are we going to be dealing with some of these unusual health circumstances that our employees may be facing?
We'll have to take those on a case-by-case basis because right now COVID-19 does have extended leave. It does have extended time to be off around FMLA. So as that continues, we'll be able to use and tap into that to make sure that we're helping our employees with those situations. But there'll be a lot of case-by-case situations that we'll probably have to look at and see what's the best outcome for each. Hard to say, but I know that we dealt with already a few around the COVID-19 stuff, and with the COVID-19 leave and the COVID-19 FMLA, there's some been added days for employees to take.
And I'll tell you, I don't know how you keep kindergartners away from each other. I wish I had a better answer, right? Like when my son and daughter were in kindergarten. What's interesting is, and so you all know, we're watching pretty closely what's happening across the globe as schools have decided to kind of go back. Denmark, Norway, Germany, these other countries, and hopefully they'll have some time under their belt so we can learn about things like that. It's going to be incredibly complicated. I think the idea that you would always be able to guarantee that kindergartners are 6 feet away from each other and or wearing a mask. I mean, I just don't know how realistic that is. And so as we go back, we're just going to have to know and understand that there's certain things that you can do that also prevent the spread, right? Frequent hand washing, trying to limit the number of kids per class, some other things that we'll have to consider. But we're not naive. I've spent most of my years in schools and elementary, middle, high schools, and I know how it goes. It's going to be tough.
Thanks, Rob. The next question is related, and you touched on this a bit with the task force, Rob, but getting teacher input about next year. And they were commenting that some middle level teachers in the school were upset that they had no say about grading and the students worked hard. And so the grades were pass fail, and then a concern that 8th graders the teachers are experiencing a drop in 8th grade student work completion because they'll know they'll pass even with more missing work.
Really tough question. Not in the sense that we're going to involve teachers. We want to involve teachers, and I think that there has to be. And Terry certainly would look, in partnership with you all, on what's the best way to get people's opinions. What's tough is people's opinions are like this, right? They couldn't be. If my screen was wider, maybe you could see as wide as I think as they are. For every email I get from a teacher, a parent, stating you need to have kids have grades, I get another email saying that you should never have grades, it's unfair, it's inequitable, right? I mean, there are both very differing sides of these arguments, right? I think that we have to do the best we can to make decisions in really tight time windows. Over the summer will give us more times to collaborate. But I'll tell you, the decisions that we make, and we're going to do the best that we can to put kids first and try to think of their best interests and try to be as flexible as we can. Not everybody's going to agree, and we know that, which makes times like this incredibly tough. But certainly partnership's important. Everybody having a say is important, but so is consistency. And I'll tell you, when we're trying to do things systemically, you have to have a level of consistency and predictability for our parents and our community. And so how do you balance flexibility with consistency? I think that those are the challenges that you're just going to see arise, and we're going to do the best that we can.
All right. We had a question from someone about looking into having retired teachers who want to help online. And somebody knows several retired teachers who have completed background checks. So they're just wondering in the fall if that's going to be a possibility to use retired teachers as volunteers.
Absolutely. We actually looked at our substitute list and how many were retired teachers just recently who understand the system, who could actually help us with that. And we had a couple of fill-ins in some of our schools because there were a couple teachers who did get ill just this past 3 weeks. So we will continue to do that. Yes, we're taking every avenue we can because people will get sick if we're going to continue online, even in person. People will get sick, but we will have as many as we can. I believe that we'll have a good number that we'll be able to tap. So I appreciate that question because that's definitely something that we have tackled.
Thanks, Mike. So I guess there's been some difference in the, I'll just read the question directly. It's called Equity and Safety Across the Building. Some teachers are being asked to return to facilitate students getting belongings and some schools are not. How can we make sure buildings are being safe in the same ways?
Probably need a little more specifics on that. I do think that we had some issues. Mike, maybe you want to chime in. I want to say that we try to clear those things up. You know, one of the challenges is when everybody's moving fast, sometimes people's wires get crossed and folks hear things differently. Certainly we want to keep everybody safe, and folks who don't feel safe, we want to make sure that we're dealing with that. I don't know, Mike, maybe you know more about the situation or can.
Yeah, we did get a report, and Rob Price investigated that. So I think we've got things lined up with that one and straightened out pretty well. But please let us know if it's not, because then we definitely want to hold those guidelines so that people that feel safe and are safe. So yeah, we did get a few. But the thing is that I think each school has its own plan. And I think that's part of maybe some confusion for some people, because in different schools are doing different days, different times. So. But yeah, we did look into that.
Thank you, Mike. So someone was wondering if we are adding more staff to Boulder Universal.
Depends on what you mean by adding more staff. I mean, could potentially. We just have to see. I would imagine that we were going to have to do that. I don't know that those are going to be new hires. I think, I kind of addressed this earlier. The ideal way would be to transition folks who for whatever reason can't come back in person to more of an online teaching type of a role. Don't know what that looks like, and I don't have details. And again, this is just an idea that I'm sharing that I would hope that we could investigate and look into.
Thanks, Rob. I would just want to welcome Representative Jonathan Singer, who has joined us a bit early, yay, for our virtual town hall. So thank you, Jonathan. We're going to continue for probably about 27 more minutes with our with Dr. Anderson. I don't know if you'd have met before, our superintendent, and Mike Gratis, our assistant superintendent of human resources, and Bill Sutter, the CFO. So welcome, Representative Singer.
Well, thanks. Carry on. And as long as it's okay for me to be here, I'll hang out, but I'll be as unobtrusive as any lawmaker actually is.
All right. Yes, we appreciate your presence.
Thanks.
Okay. So we had a question about, and yes, I agree. After 7 weeks of this, we are exhausted. I'm not teaching, but I feel exhausted myself. So there needs to be some guidance how we're going to do this and what training will be available. It seems to me that families should choose online or in person, but not have the choice of both. So I know, Rob, you've addressed this to some extent, and it's still being worked on by the task force, but maybe you could talk about choices families will have when it comes to learning in the fall.
Well, first of all, yes, exhausted, no doubt about it. Who knew that that video conferences were so exhausting? If you would have told me that before I started, I would have said, no way. But absolutely, because you don't get any breaks. It's, you're talking, it's absolutely exhausting. I think that, when we think about our parents and the choices that they have and don't have, I think that you always have to be sensitive to, for a lack of a better term, your market, right? And so, the less choices you give parents, potentially parents will make their own choices, right? We live in a state with tons of choice. Parents can switch from system to system. There isn't really a boundary in regards to what they need to do. So I would say that we have to respond to the market, right? And if we don't respond to the market, we'll lose students. And if we lose students, we lose funding, and it compounds our problems. So I'm not sure what the choices specifically will be for parents, but I do think that we better check in with them to see where they're at, right? Because even losing, if you lose 100 kids in this district, you're talking about a couple million, $500,000 to $1 million impact on our budget for every 100 kids we lose, right? And so just so everybody has a sense of that, we certainly have an incentive to do what we can to work with parents, but also, we can't roll out the fall like we rolled out the home learning after spring break. We're going to have more resources. We're going to have more tools. We're going to have clear guidelines, resources. we're going to have to do that. And we know that, and we look forward to working with teachers, BVEA, and others to help develop that.
So earlier, Rob, there was a question about how teachers get on this task force, and I am not sure if I know the answer to that. I don't know if it's a recommendation from BVEA or if it's there's going to be open solicitation for that.
We'll get you the answer to that so you can share that with everybody, Terry. I don't have that offhand.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I think Mike touched on this before. Will there be an option for employees to work from home, or will they have to take a leave if they fall into a high-risk category? Mike, I think I heard you say that we'd look at things on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, especially if they're high risk. We're definitely going to put anybody in danger. If guidelines come out from the county health department that, right now the safer at home order has a list of criteria that make a person high risk. If they meet any of that criteria, we're not going to make them come to work. We may use them in other avenues, like maybe online, part of the day or part of the week. But we'll definitely look at each one on a case by case and decide how that will go.
Thanks, Mike. And this is back a question about the automatic or the leave payout. Wondering if we can keep more than 25 days, or will you be automatically paid out if you have those 25 days already accumulated?
We'll keep it as it is right now because, as we get into the year, we're at the end of the year, and this is something that we do. That's actually coming out tomorrow. I think it's ready to be, it's already in communications hands to come out and deliver. So I would probably say at this point, we probably wouldn't change it, but in the future, we can definitely look at that.
Okay, thank you. So somebody wondered if Boulder Universals includes elementary students. That might be a quick answer. Does Boulder Universal plan include elementary students? This wasn't clear.
Yeah, Terry, let me double check, right? Like I don't believe Boulder Universal today, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe it. I believe it's more of a 6-12 program, but I do believe that that's something we'll be looking at is some potential K-5 solution through Boulder Universal. I don't know if it's with a third party. We just need to get more details on that and share that with you on how we would do that for elementary kids.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to combine a couple questions here, and it's related to technology and IT boosts for staff. So we've heard from a number of people, but recent concerns. There's my biggest concern with my new workplace, and that's in quotes, is the internet. With 2 teachers and 2 middle schoolers trying to work at the same time, often with Google Meets or other videos, my internet can't handle the volume. I normally have reliable internet for my household's personal pre-pandemic needs, but not now. Paying for a better internet service is not a cost I wish to add so I can do my job better. They feel like it's a cost their employers should cover, and then people are talking about Chromebook. It's struggling with Google Meets, and sometimes it's frustrating to use. I've also heard that it's hard to use a Chromebook with Zoom. So just any comments about technology and supporting teachers with that home learning piece?
Sure. I would say that our focus around internet is connecting our kids that aren't connected. I don't know that we have any efforts at this point to cover for internet expenses for teachers. I think that a lot of families, and mine included, are managing how this works. There's been more than one occasion where I've had to kick my kids off of the internet so I could take a board meeting or a call. Unfortunately, I think that's a new normal. At this point, we don't have the funding or the plan to begin to cover individual internet for teachers. Now, that's not to say that in extreme cases, especially as we go back in the fall, that we wouldn't be able to have space potentially for employees to drive to one of our locations and access the internet. I mean, we'd have to have a serious conversation. I don't know how widespread this concern is. Terry, if you think it is, I'm happy to have that conversation. But I can't see us going in and paying for people's individual internet as part of this. In regards to technology issues, if you're having an issue, put in a heat ticket. If IT isn't responding, contact your principal. We'll work it up the chain of command. People have to have the tools, right, to do what they need to do. Now, Chromebooks may not work on Zoom may not work on Chromebooks, but as a reminder, we're trying to drive people to Google Meet, and actually you're not supporting the use of Zoom. So in any event, maybe that could be the issue. But put in a heat ticket, let us work through it, and we'll work those on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Rob. All right, we need to put Bill to work here again. Although you may have addressed this to some extent, some districts are looking at furlough Fridays. Is this something BVSD is thinking about? If so, there is a fund called the CARES Act, I believe, that the district can apply to for teachers to receive money for their furloughed Friday. So also, if we do have furlough days, can we please look at furloughing staff who do not work face-to-face with students, central admin, ed center, et cetera, on a daily basis?
So from the CARES Act and the Furlough Friday concept, I was actually on a call last week with the deputy superintendent from Portland Public Schools in Oregon, and they're currently doing that very process in the current year because they're facing some also massive budget cuts in Oregon. So that's an option. If you do the furlough, then that is a non-contact day of some sort. Yes, a day that we furlough teachers is a day that they either aren't getting providing instruction or aren't doing the PD days or the work days or whatever else. So it's an option, and it's certainly on the table. That the option through the CARES Act, I think, is only through maybe December, so it's not an eternal sort of option. So that's yes, it's an option, but it definitely impacts different employee groups differently when you start talking about a furlough day, particularly during the school year. What was the other question?
Hold on.
Oh, different employee groups, people that don't have contact with kids. I would say that the range of options is certainly on the table, depending on what is happening August 15th. If we are not operating, if we're operating in the same way that we are right now, we would definitely be looking at furlough options for employees that aren't able to perform the duties. But that's a very far down the road sort of decision point to be made. And the questions of how long is that decision in place for? What do employees have options around filing for unemployment around those the furlough days, if it's a long-term kind of activity.
Thanks, Bill. So, Bill, I'm going to keep you going here for a minute and try to combine a couple questions. Again, I know you don't know the answers yet. How much of a percent cut is BVSD anticipating in the budget? And then someone asked, what percent of the budget is 40 million?
So the
budget is that?
I've got all those numbers. When Rob mentioned the 40 million-ish number, so that is the School Finance Act. So the conversations at the legislature are around how to fill the hole that they have to deal with, this 3.3 odd billion dollars. School finance is certainly a big portion of the state's budget at about 36%. When it comes to what the percentage actually is that they need to take action on, depending on what all the other options are. The Joint Budget Committee, I've been listening to it for several days now, is looking in all the corners, things like grant programs that run through CDE, all the different departments at the state, and to try to generate some funds to spread the cuts around as much as possible. So that $40 million is roughly a 15% cut to the current year, so not a less than we expected, but 15% of this current year's per pupil allocation. That is about $1.1 billion in the total School Finance Act for all districts across the state. We are starting to bump up against districts that are hitting base funding. So roughly $7,000 per student. Once this district hits base funding, you can't cut any further because that's at least a constitutionally protected number. Certainly the hope is that through the legislative process and all the options that are available, that number is not going to be that high for K-12 education. So that's where that $40 million, it's a 15% cut to the School Finance Act from current year, and is about a third of the total state deficit. So just kind of a through line of math thinking on that.
And Bill, what's 40% of our budget? Like, so 40 million is what percentage of our budget?
It's about 10% when you lump in all the sort of operational and different expenditure areas that, athletics and things like that. So it's about 10%.
Okay, and Bill, I'm going to give you one more here. You're on a roll. Is it possible to think about early retirement payments to explore having our most expensive teachers actually retire?
That's a great question, and it comes up regularly. It came up back in the Great Recession. I actually reached out to my peers across the other districts in the state, big districts, to kind of have them dig back into their memory banks of things that they had done over the years. And it's a question that is coming up nationally as well in my peer groups. So I think the challenge for a retirement program is different by state, for one thing. The structure of para and how it operates and rewards an individual for another year's work, assuming they're not at 40 already, that if you're going to do the math on how much it would take as a net present value of what a one more year of the para table 2.5% increase, your HAS probably is going up a smidge anyway, just because of the structure of the 3 years. That number has to be get pretty big in order to be a mathematically incentivizing number, particularly if you're looking at a 110 option where essentially you get the double pay for a year. So in Colorado, it's folks that I've talked to, it hasn't been all that effective with generating savings. And particularly, my impression of talking with folks that have retired, I'm talking with everybody that's retired, so this is a fairly small survey sample. you're kind of ready to retire when you're ready to retire, and that either includes one more year of doing a 110 or it doesn't. So the incentive of some small dollar amount, $1,000, $2,000, is unlikely to really push somebody in one direction or another to actually push a retirement forward that wouldn't have otherwise happened. So I think it's a combination of just the nature of being ready to retire, as well as the structure of PARA being a fairly robust benefit program, that it has to be a pretty big number for the math to work out.
Thanks, Bill. I'm going to go, this might be a Mike question, and this person would like the question answered specifically of why we are posting jobs and hiring out-of-district teachers from an earlier question.
We're still posting jobs because we still will have kids this fall. What that looks like still is unknown. But we already have gone through, and we're going to continue to go through all of our postings now that we know what we're up against, to see exactly what is necessary, what can be held off, or what can be canceled. And we've done that with several positions. In terms of your question about out of district, I'm not sure. I don't know how many teachers we actually have hired out of district at this point. But that is definitely something that to consider. But it is happening, and it does happen. It happens every year. So I don't know the answer to your question. Other than that, we are definitely looking at our postings. We're looking to see what's necessary, what's not. But we still will have kids next year.
Thank you, Mike. So hold on. So there's been a few questions on the chat about the reintroduction task force again. And I know, Rob, you said you were going to look into that and find out. So I know it looks like a number of teachers are wondering who's on that. I mean, nobody's on it yet, but how teachers would be selected for that and how many teachers and such. So I guess what we're saying is there'll be more information coming about that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So here's a good one. Will we be abandoning state testing again next year?
We don't know that yet. It's interesting. I think there's a couple of things at play. You have to get federal. We'll have to have the feds come in and allow states to have that flexibility, and then the State Board of Education would have to make that decision. I think there's lots of groups advocating for two things. I mean, some people are saying no tests, no anything, and others are saying go ahead, give the test, but don't give the accountability with it. So we don't know. I mean, there's federal rules and guidance around that, and we're just going to have to wait for that.
Thanks. Bill, last meeting we were presented with 3 possibilities of budget cuts: flat, 2.5, or 5%. Which way are we going? I know you've touched on that a little, but if you want to just comment on that again, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was back at the April 14th board meeting, walked through some preliminary budget, and I had those 3 scenarios. That was decidedly before the updated economic outlook that was presented yesterday to the JBC. I would say flat funding is not happening at all. 0 chance of that. Probably a 0 chance of 2.5 or 5%. And so the likelihood is more in that 10 to 15% range of a state reduction. Then again, to put this in perspective a little bit, that amount at 15%, it's a very big number, and I'm somewhat confident we won't get quite that far, but That's $1.1 billion statewide in K-12. That is the entire amount of the negative factor at its peak in 2012-13, right? And it took 4 years for it to get up to $1 billion. And over that 4 years was also including chipping away at the inflation and growth those 4 years. So this is a full-on cut from current funding, which is very, very different from not getting an increase for 3 or 4 years. And that's why it's so challenging. And it is on top of the $572 million of the negative factor right now. So, you know, this is astronomical and is well beyond anything we've had to deal with before. So neither of the 3 scenarios that I provided before, and something greater than those.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So just as you sent out a survey to families in the community, can a survey be sent out to employees / teachers, maybe even elementary, middle, and high school surveys? This is something the task force could do, since every teacher can't be a part of that decision-making group. So I think the big question is, will teachers be surveyed?
Yeah, I believe that we've already made that decision. If not, certainly it'll be a strong recommendation to the committee to do that. I think it's important to hear from people and hear their ideas. I will tell you that I get lots of emails and I read all of them and I respond to them. Maybe not as quickly today as I have in other times, just because so many. But there's great ideas, and we've got really great people, and we need to tap into our talents and strengths of the people that we have as we try to think through this. So yes.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And then it's kind of a follow-up question. And since many of the resources teachers have been using have been offered for free right now, but they probably won't be able to sustain that for next year. And they mentioned Khan Academy, Woot Math. Will teachers be able to give input about resources they've been using for free that they would like to continue using next year? Will BVSD be looking into purchasing licenses for the whole district for some of these online resources?
I'd say the only software that I know that we've moved forward with to purchase is Seesaw. And I believe there's a plan to do that. And I would say that the reintroduction task force and our academics team will be considering other software applications. If a teacher or group of teachers in a school has something that they really need, might encourage them to talk to their principal and have their principal share that with their area superintendent. And so that's on our radar.
Thanks, Rob. So back to the budget again, Bill. They want to know what the cut to BVSD's budget is, not the state budget. I don't know if, maybe I know you've touched on that. But.
Yep, so at 15%, which is 1.1 billion for the state, that's 38.3 million for BVSD. So there's that. It's about 12.8 million for every 5% ish.
Okay, and then somebody wondered how much over the minimum requirement of reserves are we?
So the Tabor requires 3%. The board policy speaks to 3% contingency reserve above Tabor and an annual evaluation of that in the budget process is when it happens. We currently have 4% in the contingency reserve. It's about $3 million for 1%. And reserves are one-time dollars, so those are absolutely available to be spent. The requirement in policy is that if reserves are going to be spent, then the superintendent needs to request it of the board and provide a plan how it's going to be paid back over 2 years. And certainly the board has the option to adjust that policy or waive it or whatever. We also have one-time dollars in fund balance and are absolutely looking to spend those one-time dollars to support positions for another year. Again, making changes to staffing at this time of year will be very challenging, and certainly that's understandable. So it's a combination of all the options that are available out there. Reserves, fund balance, cuts, so the whole 9 yards.
Thanks, Bill. I'm looking at the time, it's 5:32, and I see that we are now being joined by Representative Matt Gray and Senator Mike Foote. So here's what I'm going to say. We're going to bring this part of our AR meeting to a close. And I see that there are 89 new messages in the chat. So, and some of them definitely overlap. So what I want to say is that we will preserve the chat, and we commit to doing our best we'll share this with you, Mike and Bill and Rob, just for your reading pleasure. I'm sure it'll be pages, but I don't want to miss anything. And we will do our best to make sure that these questions are answered in the way we're able to. And that's all I can say for now. But we really appreciate your time, Mike and Bill and Rob, and thank you for being so honest. And I know these are not easy times, and there's a lot of tough questions tonight and in the future, and we'll do our best because we're all here for all students. So, please.
Carrie, if I could just say thank you to everybody. I want to thank all of our teachers for all of your work. I know there's 6 more days left to go. This is going to be a tough time. I wish I could tell you it's going to be differently. That'd be dishonest. It's going to be a tough time for all of us. What we can commit to, I can commit to you as superintendent, is to be honest, transparent, work very closely with BVEA, and we're going to do the very best job that we can to make these really tough decisions. I know we've got several of our legislators on the call. They've got a tough job ahead of them for sure over the course of the next month. Thank you. For those of you that are on the call for your service and for what you'll endure over the next month and a half. We're going to do everything we can to work hard and be transparent, and we'll do everything we can to answer all the questions you might have during the process and include as many people as we can. So thanks so much, Terry. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Terry.
Mike, any final words, Mike? Just
appreciate the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to come and speak with the ARs and the negotiating team and any of the teachers in BVEA. As you know, I started in BVEA as a teacher, and I'm still always a teacher. So thank you all for letting us come.
You're very welcome.
You bet. Thank you.